The intro cinematic drops some heavy lore about King Arthur leading a massive escape from the Red Death Plague 600 years ago. They secured Avalon, but honestly, the vibes have been off ever since the king died. Now everything is crumbling, the weirdness is creeping back in, and it is giving total apocalyptic energy. The main character wakes up in a cell and immediately gets grilled by a guard who is doing way too much for a paycheck. The guard is interrogating them about being a hunter or a beggar, which is wild considering the protagonist is literally rotting in a dungeon. It is a very hostile work environment. Finally, the protagonist gets released from the cell, but only because a mysterious stranger orchestrated a breakout. The guard is acting super suspicious about it, but frankly, when someone offers you a key in a cursed asylum, you do not ask questions. You just take the win and start running for the exit. The protagonist runs into a dying priest who decides this is the perfect time for a biology lesson. He explains the stages of the plague with way too much graphic detail. Apparently, the Wyrdness was supposed to fix the disease, but instead it just made everything random and chaotic. The science was definitely not sciencing. This priest is really trauma-dumping about how they tried to play God with the Wyrdness. He admits they tried to direct its power to cure the sickness, but the results were varied, which is a polite way of saying they created horrors beyond human comprehension. He is clearly seeking redemption before he checks out. Another prisoner is begging for the sweet release of death because he knows he is too far gone. He asks the protagonist to take his tags to Fergus at the Horns of the South. It is a super heavy moment that really hammers home that this island is basically a giant graveyard with great scenery. Karadoc shows up, and he is essentially the anti-hero we did not know we needed. He warns the protagonist that the priests are playing with powers they do not understand. He is giving major "I told you so" energy and seems to be the only person who realizes that trying to control the Wyrdness is a fool's errand. The protagonist stumbles upon a mysterious entity deep in the Wyrdness that claims to be incomplete. It is super cryptic and talks about memory loss, which is a classic trope for ancient powerful beings. This encounter feels like the start of a very complicated relationship with a ghost who does not know their own name. We get a flashback or a vision explaining how Arthur and Merlin conquered the island. They stole the sacred flame from the Dwellers and lit the Menhirs to drive away the Wyrdness. It sounds like a glorious conquest, but looking at the current state of things, it was clearly just a temporary fix for a permanent problem. King Arthur fully wakes up inside the protagonist's head, which is incredibly invasive. He introduces himself and immediately starts acting like he still runs the place. He wants to see his kingdom, completely unaware that it has turned into a total dumpster fire in his absence. The delusion is honestly kind of impressive. Arthur realizes he is not whole and that the protagonist only freed a piece of his soul. He decides to hitch a ride in their mind until he can get his strength back. He frames it as a partnership, but it feels more like unauthorized subletting of the protagonist's consciousness. Hi there. If you want to enjoy more gaming lore without grinding for 60 hours, hit that subscribe button. I do the grinding so you don't have to. Your support really helps the channel. Caradoc reveals he was actually trying to kill the protagonist to destroy Arthur's soul fragment. He explains that every time Arthur comes back, disaster follows. He is on a mission to stop the resurrection, and he essentially drafts the protagonist into helping him hunt down the other soul pieces to destroy them. Caradoc lays out the plan to steal Excalibur because a piece of the king is hiding in the blade. He gives the protagonist a special emblem to get into the Horns of the South. It is a classic heist setup, except the target is a magical sword, and the stakes are the literal apocalypse. The boat trip to the Horns of the South goes horribly wrong because the sea itself decides to attack them. A massive shadow moves beneath the water and smashes the vessel. The protagonist washes up on the beach, surviving yet another near-death experience. This vacation is getting a 0-star rating. The protagonist arrives at the fortress and tries to use the emblem, but the guards are not impressed. Fergus, the quartermaster, is extremely skeptical and basically tells the protagonist to prove they are not useless before he will let them see the captain. It is standard gatekeeping behavior from middle management. Fergus reveals that they are having a major zombie problem. The dead are not staying dead, which is very inconvenient for everyone. He sends the protagonist to talk to Marg the Hunter to deal with the undead swarm. Apparently, fighting zombies is the internship requirement for getting into the fortress. Marg the Hunter is pretty chill about the whole necromancy situation. He points the protagonist toward the cemetery where the undead are popping up. He suspects a necromancer is behind it because, of course, someone is messing with dark magic again. It is never just natural causes in this place. The protagonist confronts the necromancer who insists he is conducting valuable research. He claims he is trying to make life better by repurposing the dead, which is the most unhinged justification for zombie raising ever. He completely lacks self-awareness and thinks he is a visionary rather than a creep, disturbing the peace. After defeating the necromancer, Marg is pleased but not exactly throwing a parade. He immediately pivots to offering another job involving ethereal cobwebs. It is a classic RPG moment where completing one task just unlocks a fetch quest that sounds even more dangerous than the boss fight. Fergus finally drops the act and admits the captain is missing. He suspects the captain went to the All-Mother's temple, which is currently occupied by hostile tribes. He warns the protagonist that going there is suicide, but since the protagonist has main character plot armor, they are obviously going to go anyway. The protagonist runs into Maeve, a fierce warrior guarding the path. She refuses to let anyone pass without a test of resolve. She forces the protagonist to drink a suspicious potion that knocks them out. It is a very aggressive hazing ritual, but apparently surviving being drugged is a sign of trustworthiness here. Maeve reveals that One Eye wants to make peace with the Keepers and needs a gift delivered. The gift is a necklace made of ears, which is objectively horrifying. Maeve knows it is a bad idea but has to follow orders. The cultural disconnect between the tribes and the knights is painfully obvious. The quartermaster reacts to the ear necklace exactly how you would expect a civilized person to react, with total disgust. He rejects the gift and threatens consequences. It is a diplomatic disaster that proves neither side understands the other at all. The peace talks are definitely off the table. The captain is found conspiring with the tribes. He reveals he wants to kill Galahad the Pure because Galahad is a ruthless zealot who will purge the garrison. The captain is trying to play 4D chess to save his men, even if it means committing treason against Kamelot. The protagonist confronts Galahad, who is incredibly arrogant and dismissive. He assumes the protagonist is an assassin or a spy. Galahad radiates toxic authority and makes it very clear why everyone in the region wants him dead. He is the kind of guy who thinks he is the good guy while burning everything down. The captain is thrilled that Galahad is out of the picture. He shares a secret about a ritual involving a gong in the Sunken village that allows one to touch Excalibur. He believes this knowledge will help the South gain independence. He is basically declaring a revolution while standing over a corpse. In the Sunken village, the protagonist meets an old man who is just vibing with the sea. He talks about waiting for the end and listening to the waves. It is a philosophical interlude in a world of violence. reminding us that some people just want to watch the sunset while the world burns. The protagonist performs the ritual and summons the Lady of the Lake's counterpart, the Lord of the Seas. Arthur speaks through the protagonist, but the entity does not recognize this fragmented version of the king. It is an awkward reunion between old friends where one of them is basically a ghost with amnesia. Touching Excalibur triggers a massive flashback for Arthur. He remembers the brutal experiments Merlin conducted to win the war. He realizes that their victory was built on atrocities and that he allowed Merlin to turn soldiers into monsters. The nostalgia filter is officially off, and the reality is grim. Caradoc shows up to mock Arthur's realization. He reveals he was a prototype for these experiments, used and discarded. He is incredibly bitter and tells the protagonist that putting Arthur back together will only bring back the monster who sanctioned these horrors. He is not wrong to be salty about it. The protagonist arrives in Cuanacht and accidentally reignites a dying Menhir, which is a big deal. The local lord, Yvain, is shocked because this changes the political landscape. The glowing rock is basically a symbol of rebellion against Kamelot's orders to evacuate. Things are getting political. A bureaucrat from Kamelot is furious that the Menhir is working again because it messes up his evacuation paperwork. He represents the banality of evil, caring more about logistics and reports than the fact that a magical protective stone just turned back on. He wants the protagonist to fix it so he can leave. Maggot, a druid with a serious identity crisis, reveals that the Menhir can be fully restored. He suggests a journey into his own subconscious to find the lost ritual. It sounds like a bad trip waiting to happen, but he insists it is the only way to save the town. Inside Maggot's mind, we learn about his trauma. He betrayed his fellow druids to save his own skin and developed a split personality to cope. The Maggot persona is his self-loathing manifest. It is a psychological horror show that explains why he is so unstable in the waking world. Nante, the local priestess, is dealing with major burnout and depression. She feels she has lost her connection to the goddess and her compassion. She asks the protagonist to go to a corrupted temple to retrieve a part of her soul. It is a literal fetch quest for emotional stability. At the corrupted temple, a creepy entity mocks Nante for casting away her compassion. The entity claims Nante gave it up because she was too weak to bear the suffering of others. It frames compassion as a burden, which is a very cynical take on empathy, but fits the grimdark setting perfectly. The protagonist helps cleanse Nante's soul fragment at an altar. Nante reclaims her compassion and immediately feels whole again. She realizes that her empathy was her strength, not her weakness. It is a wholesome moment of character growth in a world that usually punishes kindness. A knight named Percival reveals he was tricked by a false goddess who forced him into servitude. He challenges the protagonist to kill the false goddess to free him. It is a tragic story of faith being weaponized against a believer, turning a holy knight into a puppet for a dark entity. The protagonist confronts the deiform entity in the temple. This being is overwhelmed by the collective sins and suffering it sees. It begs for release, claiming that the All-Mother hates humanity for their filth. It is a deity that has been driven mad by the very people it was supposed to watch over. The protagonist explores a castle stuck in a time loop or curse. We learn about three sisters and a tragic backstory involving jealousy and dark magic. It feels like a twisted fairy tale where everyone ends up miserable and dead. The narrative here is heavy on the Gothic tragedy vibes. The young prince of the castle is a total brat who hates his parents and the servants. He is hiding in a void because he is tired of his mother's expectations. It is teenage rebellion taken to a metaphysical extreme. He would rather chill in nothingness than deal with family drama. A mycelium entity offers a choice: keep the cycle of death and rebirth going, or let it take over the bodies of the king and queen to create a new, albeit parasitic, order. It presents itself as a natural evolution, but it is definitely body horror with a philosophical mask. Lord Yvain decides to defy Kamelot by declaring a quest for the Holy Grail. It is a clever loophole that allows him to stay in his lands without technically disobeying orders. He is finally stepping up as a leader, using bureaucracy to fight bureaucracy. It is a surprising power move. The blacksmith Beor is out of commission because a girl literally stole his heart, like physically took it. His master is annoyed but also worried. It is a very literal interpretation of heartbreak that forces the protagonist to find a replacement pump for the poor guy. A tribal smith helps forge a new heart for Beor, but warns it needs to be filled with life energy. She suggests using the deaths of enemies to charge it up, which is incredibly metal. It turns the act of healing into an act of violence, fitting for this brutal world. Arthur gets the second piece of his soul, the shield, and immediately starts roasting the current generation of leaders. He calls them weak and indecisive, completely ignoring that he is the one who broke the system in the first place. He is serving Major Boomer energy, complaining that nobody wants to work anymore. Orin, Merlin's apprentice, leaves a holographic voicemail welcoming the protagonist to his mansion. He claims he wants to fix Merlin's mistake and resurrect Arthur properly this time. He sounds polite, but anyone living in a creepy mansion with magical defenses is definitely up to something shady. The protagonist enters the tribal lands and meets Jaren, who is still salty about Arthur breaking ancient treaties. Jaren is rallying the tribes to march on Kamelot. He hates the knights and views Arthur's return as a chance to finally settle the score. The political tension is at an all-time high. We learn about Thrigvi, a chieftain who tried to become a giant by merging with a pillar and turned into a monster. His tribe worships him out of fear. It is a classic case of power corrupting absolutely and turning a leader into a literal abomination that needs to be put down. The protagonist goes deep underground to kill a beast and prove their worth to the giants. The giants are ancient and demand specific trophies to grant their blessing. It is a trial by combat to earn the respect of beings who view humans as annoying ants. Angvar, chieftain of the Folker tribe, is depressed because his people are seen as madmen. He refuses to join the alliance until the protagonist helps them reclaim their dignity. It is sad to see a proud warrior reduced to worrying about his tribe's reputation in the eyes of others. The protagonist goes on a drug trip to find the missing matron of the Volker tribe. They discover that the matron's power comes from a connection to the Fore-Dwellers, their ancient enemies. It is a massive revelation that proves their entire culture is based on a lie or a misunderstanding. The chosen successor, Elsbeth, commits suicide rather than become the new matron. It is a devastating blow that shows just how terrifying the role is. She chose death over the loss of self that comes with the position. The tribe is left leaderless and broken by her choice. The protagonist finds a woman, Frail, who was cast out for being weak, and convinces her to become the new matron. It is a subversion of the tribe's values, proving that a nurturing spirit might be stronger than blind rage. She accepts the burden to save her people, showing true bravery. The Svein tribe is in shambles because their god, the Stag Father, went feral and started killing them. They are in a full crisis of faith, realizing their deity is a monster. The chieftain Barlam is just trying to keep the survivors alive while dealing with the fallout of divine madness. Glenna the Shamaness reveals that the only way to stop the Stag Father is to enter the unrealm of the hunt and fight him. It is a metaphysical boss battle where the protagonist has to beat a god into submission to save the tribe from being hunted to extinction. The Thud tribe has decided to just sleep forever in a collective dream to escape the Wyrdness. Their leader, Envy, is guarding their bodies while they check out of reality. It is a form of mass suicide disguised as spiritual transcendence, driven by total hopelessness. Runa, a skeptic within the tribe, argues that the dream is a trap and they should stay and fight. He believes running away to a dream world is cowardly and dishonorable. It is a clash between the desire for peace and the duty to endure reality, no matter how harsh it gets. The giant mother entity in the dream reveals she just wants to adopt the humans as her children to save them. She views the waking world as a lost cause. Arthur argues with her, claiming his return will fix everything. It is a debate between a protective mother and an arrogant king. Arthur finally has a moment of true clarity and regret. He realizes he betrayed the tribes and used them as pawns. He sees that his legacy is built on lies and suffering. It is the most human he has sounded the entire game, admitting that he might be the villain of his own story. Caradoc waits at the charred conclave, ready to end it all. He explains that the druids were burned as scapegoats for the plague, creating a wound in the world. He is tired of the cycle and wants to destroy Arthur to stop the madness. He is the voice of nihilism, wanting to burn the system down. Orin steps out of the shadows and reveals his master plan. He wants to resurrect Arthur with his humanity intact this time, believing a king with a heart can save Avalon. He frames the previous failures as a result of Merlin stripping away Arthur's emotions. Ideally, he wants a benevolent dictator. Karadoc counters by saying that even a good king is a crutch. He believes humanity needs to stand on its own without myths or rulers. He wants to see the world fall apart, just so it can finally be free of the lies. He is essentially an anarchist who believes chaos is better than false order. Arthur's soul speaks to the protagonist one last time. He begs for death. He is done being a symbol, a weapon, and a king. He just wants to rest. It is a heartbreaking plea from a man who has been used by everyone for centuries. He gives the protagonist full permission to delete him. The protagonist stands at the final crossroads. They hold the power to shape the future of Avalon. The game frames this not as a victory, but as a burden. Whatever choice they make will define the world, for better or worse. It is the ultimate test of agency. In one ending, the protagonist sides with Orin. King Arthur returns, whole and powerful. He reclaims his throne, and the world bends to his will. It is a happy ending on the surface, but it feels like submitting to the old order. Order is restored, but freedom is sacrificed. In another ending, the protagonist sides with Caradoc. Arthur is destroyed, and the cycle is broken. There is no king, only the messy reality of survival. It is a chaotic, uncertain future, but it is one where people are finally free to make their own mistakes without a divine ruler. The protagonist can also choose to take the power for themselves. They become the new ruler, not as Arthur, but as themselves. It is a bold move, stepping into the power vacuum and trying to do better. History will judge if they become a savior or just another tyrant. Alternatively, the protagonist gives the soul to Fear, the smith. He builds a system where everyone works together, dismantling the hierarchy. It is a socialist utopia ending, though the narrator notes that the old elites just went underground. It is hopeful but realistic about human nature. Giving the soul to Yvain results in a weak rule. He is too indecisive and the kingdom crumbles under his lack of leadership. It is a cautionary tale that good intentions are not enough to rule a broken world. The people lose faith and chaos ensues. Giving the soul to Geran leads to the tribes conquering Kamelot. The capital moves and the old knightly order is replaced by tribal law. It is a total inversion of the status quo, with the marginalized taking power. The south falls apart, but a new, rougher order rises in the north. The epilogue wraps up the fates of the companions. Nante is remembered as a saint. Maggot starts a new druid circle. The tribes either rebuild or fade away, depending on the choices made. It emphasizes that while kings rise and fall, life goes on for the people on the ground. Gaming lore is long and confusing, but I break it down every week. Subscribe so you never miss a plot twist or hidden detail. Thanks for watching.